As I said last week, there are those who are naturally and willingly humble before God, and then there are those who must experience some great thing in their lives in order to make them humble. Good morning. This is Pastor Ernie Lewis of the Blue Point Church in Sisney, Illinois, with your thoughts for Tuesday. When we read about the Apostle Peter in the New Testament, we believe him to be outspoken, brash, perhaps dangerously proud to be one of Jesus' disciples. And when Jesus has eaten the Last Supper with his disciples and he leads them out to the Garden of Gethsemane, he stops Peter along the way to caution him of the future and even warns him of what he might face. He says in Luke 22:31, "Simon, indeed, Satan has asked for you that he may sift you as wheat, but I have prayed for you that your faith should not fail." Peter may have been embarrassed in front of the other disciples, or perhaps just angry that Jesus would even think such a thing of him being overcome by Satan. So he spoke up and he told Jesus, "Lord, I am ready to go with you, both to prison and to death." But Jesus knew his heart. He knew the temptations that he would soon face. So he said, "I tell you, Peter, the rooster shall not crow this day before you will deny 3 times that you know me." This must have been crushing to Peter's ego. But we know the rest of the story. We read the gospel accounts of Peter's encounters. Jesus, first of all, calls for his disciples to watch and pray. They're in the garden, and yet they continue to fall asleep. Then when the Roman soldiers come and carry Jesus away, the Bible tells us that Peter followed afar off. Now Jesus is taken into the Sanhedrin for a mock trial with these paid witnesses, and Peter is left outside, warming his hands around the fire with a motley crew of scoffers, and they accuse him of being a follower of Jesus because of his appearance or his accent. They said, "Surely you're a Galilean." And certainly 3 times he denies that he is a follower of Jesus, even ends it with an oath. And then Luke 22 tells us that the rooster began to crow and that Jesus even turned to look at Peter. And suddenly the warning rings loud in his ears. "The rooster will not crow before you have denied me 3 times. Crushed by the weight of this experience, the Bible says he went out and wept bitterly. I cannot imagine what this experience was like for this. So this experience humbled one who thought he was an invincible follower of Christ. But don't miss the rest of the story. It is this same Peter who runs to the empty tomb when he hears that Jesus has risen from the dead. And he gathers with the other disciples there in Galilee when Jesus first appears to them. It is just Jesus, the same Peter, who takes steps of leadership in Acts chapter 1 when they're trying to replace Judas with a new disciple. He also preaches that tremendous sermon in Acts chapter 2 on the day of Pentecost, where the Bible says that 3,000 were added to the church. And this is the same Peter who in Acts chapter 3, along with John, heals a lame man that is sitting there beside the gate. Oh, certainly he has been humbled. In Acts chapter 4, the Sanhedrin tells him not to preach anymore, and he said, "Oh, no, we think we ought to obey God rather than man." He may have been humbled, but now he is a faithful servant of God that will not be turned away from the calling that God has placed on his life.